When I was a little kid, my father always took me to the baseball field. He and his teammates were sweating on the field and enjoying the sport to the fullest. I loved baseball too, and I was eager to learn the sport from my father. However, as I slowly grew up, my interests began to change. When I saw a soccer game, I was fascinated by the fast running and passing on the field. I immediately fell in love with the sport, and I wanted to be a good soccer player. I talked to my father about the idea, but he didn't seem too happy about it. "Don't you like baseball anymore?" he asked. "I like baseball, but I want to be a soccer player more," I replied. My father seemed a little disappointed, but he respected my decision and supported me to pursue my dream. He often took me to soccer games and bought me the equipment and shoes I needed. This experience of mine happened in May of 2003. My classmates and I were attending a friendly soccer match. The weather was great and my teammates and I were in great shape. The game was very intense that day. During a ball grab, I was standing in my own half of the field and my teammates were preparing to pass the ball to me. The ball was flying high and I had to jump up to catch it. However, one of the opponent's players was also jumping up to compete for the ball. He was much taller than me. In the process of jumping, he hit my temple with his elbow. I felt a strong shock. Instantly, I felt as if I had fallen out of the sky and my body was completely out of control. My brain seemed to stop working instantly. Strange images and sounds began to appear in my mind, as if I had entered a completely unfamiliar world. As I floated in the air, I saw the soccer field below me. My coach and other teammates gathered around me, and the coach's expression looked nervous. He reassured the other players while telling those around me not to get too close and to try to keep the air circulating. I felt very light now, as if a feather was floating in the air. This feeling made me feel very wonderful. I also felt very scared because I didn't know what would happen next. Suddenly, a tunnel appeared above me. When I entered the tunnel, I saw a young lady. She was very beautiful. Later I realized that she was my grandmother. Only she looked a little younger. She smiled and said, "I have been waiting for you." This surprised me, and I couldn't understand why she was waiting for me, since we hadn't met before. When I felt confused, she seemed to already know what I was thinking. She said, "I am waiting for you because you are lost and I will help you find your way home." I was surprised. "How did you know what I was thinking?" I asked. She replied, "In heaven, there are no secrets." Her expression was conveyed to me in a nonverbal form. The feeling was truly amazing. I had never had such an intimate and direct way of communication. She told me that there is no hypocrisy or concealment of any kind here. You don't need words to communicate here because there are more efficient ways to communicate in heaven. No one lies here because everyone knows what each other is thinking. I inquired of her, "And how do you plan to get me back on the right path?" Her answer surprised me even more when she said, "When you were created, you knew what you were going to be. Unfortunately, you have lost your way." I was surprised because I never thought I would lose my way. "If the soul is lost, it will not find its way home," she continued. Near-death experiences are God's way of helping them. I was even more confused when I heard this statement, and I didn't understand if it meant I was about to die. She seemed to sense my unease and she reassured me, "Don't worry, my child, this is just a wake-up call. You must gain strength from it and find your way again. Some souls will choose to stay in heaven and give up their life on earth for a while. And some souls will choose to return to Earth to continue their lives and return to their families. She explained that God loves all His children. He wants them all to fulfill their mission. He won't judge them if they don't succeed the first time. He will keep giving them chances until they have fulfilled their mission. I asked her, "But I don't know now what kind of person I should be. And what do I need to do next?" I was a little surprised and disturbed when she told me that I had to talk to my father. I asked her, "Does this mean I have to talk to God? He should be very busy, right?" She led me to a huge staircase. I didn't see God, but I could hear His voice. He called out my name and then welcomed me by name. I was amazed because it was the first time I had ever heard God's voice. His voice was so warm and comforting that it made me feel very relaxed. He told me that He was always watching over me. I felt very shocked inside because I never thought I would be watched by God. I immediately felt very small and God was so great. God said, "Do you remember what you asked me to discuss before?" I couldn't answer Him because I didn't remember ever talking to Him. God gently put His finger on my forehead, and then I began to remember what had happened before. I used to have a dream to become a professional soccer player. I spent a lot of time and energy chasing that dream, but ultimately failed. When I came back here, I realized it wasn't what I really wanted. I wanted to be a lawyer with integrity and provide legal assistance to those who could not afford to defend themselves. I expressed my thoughts to God. He told me that it was a noble desire and that He would always support me and help me achieve this dream. I said to God, "I know what I should do now. I am ready to go back." A smile appeared on God's face and then said, "I will also give you another option. If you feel that this life is a failure now, you can also stay. You can also try to return to earth life again later. In heaven, time is not a problem, and we will always wait for your decision." I asked God, "What will happen to my family if I stay?" God replied, "Your family will come here to reunite with you after you finish your own mission." But God also reminded me that if you stay here, your mother will be very sad. Hearing these words made me feel conflicted. I like the feeling of being here. But I also don't want to make my mother sad. God said that He would support me no matter what I choose. I decided to go back to Earth and be with my family. Before I left, God told me that He would always be watching me wherever I went. He also reminded me that love exists within everyone and that I can feel it all the time if I want to. When you finish your mission, there will be a place for you in heaven. The lady next to me asked me if I was ready to go back. I nodded and replied, "Yes, I am ready." She said to me, "After you go back, say hello to your mother for me and tell her that I love her." I asked her in surprise, "How do you know my mother?" She didn't answer my question, she just said, "You will get the answer after you tell your mother about it." I didn't understand what her words meant, but I thought she must have her reasons, so I promised her that I would convey this information to my mother. I suddenly appeared in a hospital room. I was lying on a hospital bed. Family members and medical staff were all around me. Looking at my own body, I did not feel fear. I felt very calm. Suddenly, I felt myself being pulled back into the real world. I heard the sound of someone talking around me. When I opened my eyes, I saw my mother. My mother had been crying. She saw me open my eyes and hugged me excitedly. What was happening here? I asked the paramedics around me. "It's okay, you're going to be fine. You have a mild concussion." I told my mother that I had met a lady in heaven. She told me to say hello to you. Mother's eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. She asked me who the lady was and I told her I didn't know. This confused the mother even more. The nurses around me were also looking at me, and they obviously thought I was lying. I realized that it was probably not a good idea for me to tell anyone else about my experience in heaven. When I got home, my mother was eager to know more details about the lady, and she asked me to describe her appearance and characteristics. As I described it, my mother gave a surprised look. Finally, my mother went into the storage room, as if she was looking for something. I asked her what she was doing. She didn't answer me. About half an hour later, she held a picture in her hand. My mother asked me if this was her. I took the picture and saw that it was the same lady I had met. Her smile and appearance were exactly the same as I remembered. I was surprised and asked my mother, "Who is this?" My mother choked up and said, "She is your grandmother." My mother explained that my grandmother had passed away 8 years before I was born. She was a very kind and benevolent person who spent all her energy on her family. I realized that I had met the grandmother I had never met. She gave me guidance and comfort. This experience made me believe that deceased loved ones are somehow interconnected with us. While in college, I chose to major in law. I completed my studies with honors. I was also actively involved in various charity activities on campus, hoping to make my contribution to society. This is what I always wanted to do. After graduation, I joined a charity organization and became a volunteer. I use my free time to provide free legal assistance to those in need. I always believe that the law should be fair and everyone should be treated justly. I receive emails from many people every day. I will answer each email carefully and do my best to help them solve their problems. In the process, I feel that life is very fulfilling. I knew I was doing something worthwhile. I did not forget my commitment to God. When I got married, my wife was also very understanding and supportive of my work. We have a lovely son. I will play soccer with him often. Although I didn't become a soccer player, I got fun and relaxation from it. My family life is full of love and happiness. This is my story. I believe that if we strive to pursue our ambitions, we can have a full and meaningful life.